Welcome to the Erotic Awakening podcast. Dan and I are on the road again, and we'll get back to recording next week when we're settled in Phoenix. For now, let's listen to episode 200, where Dan and I reflect on not being rock stars from 2012. Have a great week, everyone.
Bandwidth for Erotic Awakening is provided by Black Rose, celebrating their 25th anniversary in Washington, D.C., October 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th in a hotel takeover. Dungeons, day and night, more than 60 classes, fabulous shopping with many vendors, and no one in the hotel except for registered Black Rose attendees. Come join us for the premier BDSM community event in the nation. Find out more at www.brevent.org.
Welcome to Erotic Awakening, an exploration of all things erotic. Every Thursday, your hosts Dan and Dawn share with you their experience and insights on kink, power exchange, and erotic life, as well as bring you interviews with exciting people from various lifestyles. Then every Monday, you'll hear from our various guest hosts. These nationally known educators bring a variety of experience to the mics and share with you an ever-increasing diverse world of alternative life. Erotic Awakening is intended for mature audiences. If you are offended by adult topics or prohibited by law, we recommend you stop listening right now.
Hi, Dawn.
Hi, Dan.
For episode 200, we were thinking about doing something really big, and instead we decided to do something a little small.
So, well, we do that every now and then, something on a small scale.
And watch it when you talk about small scale. I'm sitting here naked. I am actually sitting here naked.
You are. Look at you.
Just came back from a little morning jog and
A little morning shower.
and now we're going to do a little morning show. And the episode 200, we decided to do something more of a personal blog sort of thing. And we're going to
Right.
call the episode Rock Stars.
Yeah, we do that every now and then, so we don't really get a chance to type and process. And I know I just wrote on FET yesterday that I was going to try to journal a little bit more and use FET as a place for journaling. And I know you've thought about that as well, but sometimes we just don't have time for that, and it's easier to process when we're just looking at each other and talking on the mic.
Absolutely. So if you're looking for a show that's going to teach you how to do fire play or give a great blowjob or power exchange dynamics, or should you ever punish a slave, or should it be such an intensely emotionally stable relationship that punishment's never brought up?
Listen for
Yes,
a
those are
future
future
show.
shows. Today we are going to talk about what it is like for Dawn and Dan to be the host of the EA podcast for 200 episodes, and we'll probably talk a little bit about what it's like for us to be presenters, authors, and sometimes in our little circle of presenter type people, we refer to other people as the rock stars in the
stars.
community, and sometimes
Right.
other people refer to us as rock stars, which is always funny to us. You know, I have a new person under my control named Bat, and she came to me the other day and said, well, I was talking to so-and-so, and they said, oh, Dan and Dawn, they're rock stars around here.
You know, and it's funny because I just had that happen to me as well a couple of days ago. I was talking to someone that's new in the community and had taken a break for a little while, and now they're back, but they're still seen as new. And they were talking to me and they stuttered and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm talking to you, so I'm having a hard time. This is, you know, and I'm like, wow, I'm Dawn.
Yeah.
Calm down.
And it's just funny to get, I mean, you know, here's the counterbalance to that is, how's your back?
How's my back?
Yes.
My back hurts well, this morning it's a lot better.
Yes.
So just last night I would have said it still hurts like hell.
The magic of acupuncture.
Magic of acupuncture?
But the reason I ask is because just a few days ago you bent over to pick up some yogurt, I think it was.
Yeah, and didn't even bend over me, and I slightly tilted. It wasn't even like a huge bend.
Right, and you threw your back out.
Threw my back out.
I've got a boss who is goes from being annoying to crazy in a normal 40 an hour a week job. We have a cat that throws up on stuff. We have the same financial, physical issues that everybody else in the world has, right? We as just peoples. So the idea that people treat us like rock stars or special or as celebrities, it's always mystifying to a point. Now, it's really funny to do a show about talking about how humble we are, and then express, here's why I'm so damn humble.
I know it is a little kind of weird, but we do keep control of our egos. That's one of our things that we like to do is, and that keeps us from feeling like we're, I don't know, rock stars.
I think that a big part of it for me is that when people write us, it feels like new friends are just sharing things with other friends, not like they're reaching out to somebody because of any other reason, We had Voy George, side note, one of the great names, yes, send something on the comment forum about the chauffeuring and how the service and the uniform is fetish-ish.
Right.
And that made a lot of sense to me. But that was just neat to have him reach out and say, hey, I listened to your podcast and here's my thoughts on it, right? And I think part of the reason that we started to talk about this, it started because we recently did a interview with a guy, Andrew Goffman. Andrew Goffman, is that right?
Goffman, right.
He's doing a one-man Broadway show called The Accidental Pervert. So we interviewed him for the podcast. And he's like, oh, but you guys do that, and you guys do that. You guys can teach me. You guys should. I was like, dude, we're fucking interviewing you, remember? You're not the guy on Broadway. We're just a couple of people. Fuck it, we live in fucking Ohio.
Right.
How much of a rock star can you be living in Ohio? I'm sorry.
I get it. So, and it's really kind of funny because, there's just been a lot of things lately that have been happening that have made us kind of look at that and scratch our heads a little bit. But we just got a phone call from a presenter. Well, you got a phone call from a presenter. I bet it made you all giggly.
It did.
Because we consider them the rock star.
Yeah.
And I got a phone call from another presenter, that yesterday, and I'm all giggly because of who it is. That's the rock star. And then I find out that at least the one that called me is all giggly because she gets to call me. And I'm like, okay, this is we're our own fan clubs of each other sort of thing.
Now, it is neat. And we can't deny that, the cat's shoving her ass into my face. Apparently the cat is the rock star in this fucking house.
Claire is the rock star. She just stretched out in front of me.
Yes. That it is quite a pleasure. Boy, and I don't really... Well, I can't think of the word. I'll just keep going. But when we recently went to an event that was on the same weekend as another event, right? We normally go to event A, but event B asked us to come out. Same weekend as event A. No problem. We go to event B because they asked.
Right.
A couple that always goes to event A came to event B. And we said, hey, we didn't think we would see you here. We'll always see you at the other event. And they said, well, you guys are here. So we wanted to come see your stuff. It was like, you traveled 600 miles because we're at A or B instead of A. Wow, that's fucking... And, and we get invited to presents around the nation, international at this point, because Canada does count for us.
Right.
Twice in Canada.
We're actually scheduled to go there twice next year.
But there's no it doesn't feel... I think we've been very fortunate to cultivate a sense of the fact that we're not special. And I really believe that for that. So we're good at chatting.
And like we said, we have the gift of gab.
You know what? And we've done, in our early gigs as presenting, right? Maybe year 2, 3, 4, when we realized we really were good. And, humility aside, when it comes to presenting, I can recall, it used to be, you have a class, let's say you have 30 people in the class.
Right.
You have a handful of people who walk out after the class looking in their little books, looking to see what's next. Most of the class, hanging around, feeling good, slowly filters out. You can tell, hey, they enjoyed themselves. You have 2 or 3 people come up to you after class and say, wow, that really struck me. This is something I needed to hear. This is something that's foundational for me. It's like, wow, man, that's the point where I said we're really actually pretty good at presenting.
Right.
We have a good message. We have good educational skills, which, by the way, I've seen many presenters that bore me, right? Because they don't understand. There's a skill to presenting. I'll get to a point, though. There's a skill to podcasting, too, which apparently I'm not doing too well today. But in the last 4 or 5 years, that number has been, it's like there's 1 or 2 people that walk out.
Right.
They're not there for fun or education. They're there for statistics.
Right.
So they get the fuck out. And the rest of the class seems to just have a fantastic time.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic time. And you end up having those people kind of follow around to whatever other classes you're doing. Again, I'm not putting this out there to say, oh, we're so good, we're so good.
No.
But to say those, at that early point, here's the whole point of all that spiel. That early point where we started being good, we were starting to think, we should be pro for, right? We should be getting paid for this shit. Look at so-and-so and so-and-so. They get paid for this shit, right? And it's never happened. I mean, I can count the paying gigs that we've done on one hand. And that's not just people covering your expenses. Or
we're talking over and above travel and stuff like that.
Here's your $150 fee per class.
Right.
And I think it was a fantastic thing for us that never happened for us. Because it made us continually say, wow, am I really as good as I think I am? Maybe we're not that good. Maybe we're not that special.
Yeah.
But we're sure having a good time.
Let's keep doing it.
Right. And at this point, and that allows us to continue to do what we do, to have a good time.
So, well, and that's why, like, some of this feedback stuff actually feeds us too. So, because, I mean, we don't consider ourselves like level A presenters because we don't get paid per class.
Right.
I think we're high Bs. You know, people enjoy what we have to say. We have a great way of getting the message out there. We entertain. We share our life story.
Right.
You know, and this is how we teach, is by sharing from our experience. And so we get feedback from people, and it still amazes me how many people are writing back. It amazes me when we are at an event, and I was just telling you this morning, you know, how we were talking outside of a dungeon and somebody was asking us some questions, and the dungeon monitor came over towards us, and we're like, oh shit, we're talking too loud, you know, we're too close to the dungeon. And instead he comes out and he goes, are you Dan and Dawn? I recognize your voices. And that's happened more times than I can count. And it's sometimes it's a little stalker freaky-ish.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And it is funny when you talk about the comments that we get. We love comments that we get from, but on one comment that we got over the last week via FitLife, somebody sent you a link to a tentacle story. It was his rose. Oh my God, yes. Right? And it was real hot, and that's really fun.
There was no pictures, but I read the story, and it was really hot. And hey, Gretchen, I'm supposed to be getting another story, aren't I?
Yeah, isn't it like a multi-series thing that Gretchen's writing?
I haven't heard it, so I'm gonna have to poke Gretchen because those were hot too.
Gretchen was one of our earlier long-term fans, listeners, stalkers. So we'll see if Gretchen is still listening. Ooh. But you get the tentacle thing on one hand, and then we had on the other hand, Heather wrote in and said that we'd helped her find her authentic self, and for her to accept that she wasn't a freak. And talk about something you can cherish when you go to bed at night. You know,
absolutely.
And that's what all this shit's about. It's about having fun and about whatever we do is what spiel we do, and then after the fact, somebody come back and say, "Wow, you mean I'm really an okay person? My authentic self is a good thing." I mean, how neat is that? It's just a gift that we've been given.
It is. So, and then we have, we've actually had a lot of people contacting us. I mean, the comment form and Facebook and all this type of stuff. Cosmic Candy just bought Living MS for the Kindle Fire and was having a great time with that. God, we've got more people on the newsletter that have subscribed to that, which you can subscribe to on our website.
And that's really neat too, because you can see like Madam Ladybug and Aiden from Florida, and that's the neat part is you can see where they're from. Right? Ravenheart's from North Carolina, Corey is from New Hampshire, and the one that kills me,
No Name.
Yeah, No Name from Columbus. Somebody in Columbus, which is going to lead us into our next part of this, has subscribed to the newsletter. Didn't give us a name. You're in Columbus. You're on the newsletter. Well, I want to tell you about star fucking, but we'll get there in a minute. I don't want to throw your thing off.
So, well, what? And I actually got to meet somebody in person over the weekend. So that was really cool. So, Flavored Fruit out of Cincinnati was up doing something for work, and I just put a call out, just wanting to have dinner with somebody, and and I forget.
Yeah.
I forget that I'm known, sort of thing. This is just Dawn putting out a message, hey, I want to do dinner with somebody. And it's not really to fill in time. It was to meet somebody new and to learn about them and things like that. We talk about ourselves so much. It's kind of nice to actually talk to someone else and talk about themselves. And then I found out she's heard me on the podcast. So I made sure not to let that flavor the evening. I still wanted it to be about her. So that was kind of neat to just sit back and not allow any starstruck inism. Yeah. Inism. How's that for a word? To flavor the evening.
It's our podcast. You can make up words if you want.
Star flavor-ism.
The thing that I wonder about, and sometimes I wonder if people listening to this episode are going like, you guys are full of shit. How you cannot record 15 minutes talking about how humble you are. Well, and still be humble. It just doesn't work that way.
Well, what's weird, and one of the other things that's in my head that I want to mention is it still gets really weird because I just had to do a bio to be a judge in at the International Master Slave Contest, right? And you have to keep it below 250 words. And I'm
Side
just
note,
listing...
Master Jim, Slave Marsha, thank you for that rule.
For the 250 words.
Because the part where we read the judges' the bios for the judges, and they are chapter and books.
I know.
Not my favorite part of the event.
No, it can get
I appreciate
boring.
the respect for them, but yeah, I don't care what you did in 8th grade. Can we move on? Mm-hmm. Anyway, go on. I'm sorry.
So, I'm writing this stuff, and I'm writing all these accomplishments, and I'm like, oh my God, we actually have created and started and accomplished quite a bit. It's co-host to the podcast, co-author to these books, co-producer of this event, co-creator of this training program, and it's almost 250 words of everything that's, so we do a lot of hard work too.
Yeah.
And just recognizing that, but still kind of being detached from it.
So how do you do that? How do you cultivate that maintaining a level of humility, and I'm going to use the word humility or graciousness is another good word, at that point where we've seen other presenters of similar ilk that have different expectations of how people will respond to them. How's that put, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we have had, at this point, I can look at the number of followers we have on our little EA group on FetLife. I can look at the number, we just got the numbers in on the number of books we've sold, right?
Oh, yeah. Nice surprise there.
Yeah, no shit. The number of times, and this time I'll do it backwards. When was the last time we went to an event and somebody didn't approach us and say, Dan and Dawn, oh, hey, nice to meet you guys. I hear you listen to the podcast. I read the book, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Right? With all those things going on, how do you maintain this sense of just being a normal person? And I know what my answer is. Go ahead. You know what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, I know what you're trying to get to. Let me ramble for just a second, I guess. Or walking into Leather Archives and Museum and being seen right off the bat by someone that recognizes us by name.
Sure.
And, our book's in there now, and we just got mentioned on their newsletter and, this type of thing.
Or somebody or tiny liking us on Facebook.
Right. And so I know one thing is that we preemptively tried to keep the ego from getting in charge. So before our workshops, and we've done this for a really long time, we actually wrote a ritual. And we do this before. At first, it was to calm our nerves. Mm-hmm. And but it becomes something that we do still in front of workshops. And basically, it's thanking the universe for giving us this opportunity to speak to people and reminding ourselves that we are just messengers with the gift of gab. We are not better than anybody else. And another thing that reminds me of that is, because I get starstruck by people. Yeah. So, I'm going to be a judge, and it's going to be a great and new experience, and that's how I'm going into it. This is a great new experience. This has nothing to do with anything else, and there's people that are going to be sitting next to me that I think are rock stars.
Right. I mean, and it's
know?
really neat to that experience of, oh my God, I'm sitting next to this person and this person and this person. You know, part of it for me is we don't make any money at this. We still have to pay the bills.
Right.
Speaking of which, Erotic Awakening is sponsored in part by Adventures in Sexuality, Central Ohio's kinky fun group. Coming up AIS's third annual AIS Lifestyle Motorcycle Ride on August 11th. You too can be a badass on a bike, cruising with your kinky pals at the AIS Motorcycle Ride. Find out more at adventuresinsexuality.org.
Badass on a bike. I like that.
I had that reminds me of something else that's along the lines of our topic. Very rarely, so longtime listeners know I have a relationship with a woman named Karen. We've had a relationship with her for most of the episodes. I think the entire time we've been doing the podcast.
Yes.
It's been a while.
Yes.
Normally, she's very down-to-earth sort of person. I'll get to the point. She went riding on the back of Master Eric's bike some time back. Mm-hmm. And she came back and said, oh, you need a motorcycle.
Right.
I was like, wow, suddenly you're hot for something that's not me. You're hot for a motorcycle.
Right.
And Master Eric suddenly looks much better because he has a motorcycle. Not that Master Eric's not a good-looking guy anyway. But the point being, to tie this back, right? We didn't get to go to Trans Camp Out this year.
Right.
But Karen did go, and Karen did some presenting out there. And I don't know if I told you this, but one of the ways that Karen was interacted with people, she said, oh, I'm Karen. And somebody said, oh, Karen. Oh, Dan and Dawn Karen? So, I don't think I don't know. She did not react poorly to that.
Okay.
But it's neat to do that to have that kind of things happen as well. That was a side note. The way that I, and the way that you do this too, the way that we stay humble is to stay accessible.
Yes.
That's huge for us, is to stay accessible. I was thinking while I was preparing for the show, taking a shower, there are the true rock stars, right? Not us, the real rock stars in the community. And I'm going to use the term, I'm going to say there's certain of them out there that are divas. I have one person in particular in mind, right? This person goes to an event, pays, you're not even going to talk to her unless you're going to pay her fee.
Right.
And the kind of you wants to be treated in the way you would treat a Johnny Depp, a rock star,
right. They want to be driven around.
A bottle of water in the room, driven around, not going to stay for your event.
Don't interact with people at the event. Yeah.
I was talking to a friend of mine who's an event producer of these huge events, and he was telling me the story. Mm-hmm. And I said, wow, that's crazy. I bet you're never going to bring them back again. And he said, oh, yeah, I'll bring this person back because their name carries the weight to sell extra tickets, right? So that's the rock star, where you can be a not great guest.
Right.
From my perception. Again, this is my perception. Obviously, this person's doing it right.
For them.
Right.
Yeah.
Everybody in the world knows who they are, blah, blah, blah.
The
point being, for us, the way that we maintain who we are is to be accessible, to be gracious. Deb Addington taught us that long time ago. You were her demo dolly. She was shoving her fist in your snatch. Mm-hmm. That was the limit of your interaction with her, but she was very gracious to you.
She bowed to me and, said namaste and just very gracious. Very, yes.
And I've told the story far too many times of Jay Wiseman, how our first interaction with him was, and at that time, right? Mm-hmm. He was already a rock star at that time, right? Right. My interaction with him was very... There was no. We didn't even know who he was. Yes, exactly. And we thought he was a noob. Yeah. But he never stood up on the table and said, look, motherfucker, I'll tell you, here's one of the many books I've written. Heard of me now? Yeah. Never got any of that from him. So I think those lessons really helped us in the beginning. Mm-hmm. But to continue to the idea that, 20 years from now, nobody's going to fucking know who we are.
No.
40, sister.
Well, maybe some people 40. That we've helped might remember us, but overall, no.
I think
and I don't want to say helped.
Maybe part of it is that you and I practice a lot of presence, right?
Yes.
Being engaged in the here and now, and understanding it is all fleeting, right? I think that right now who knows what the future holds for us, but there's got to be a point where either we're tired of presenting and doing this stuff, or they're tired of us.
Right.
Right? And time's going to go by, and that's going to happen. And part of it is this, it's not our, as I've mentioned a few times, it's not our living. It's not what we do. We
still get excited when we get invited to events.
Exactly.
I think that's part of it, too. It's not an expectation, blah, blah, blah. Look, we've co-produced an event and a book and a blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Why aren't they inviting us? We don't really think on that level at all. Instead, it's like, oh, do you know who we just got a phone call from? Or do you know we just got invited? Isn't this going to be great? And we go in with a sense of excitement. So, and I think that's one of the trade-offs with being paid presenters. Being a paid presenter, I think you kind of lose that excitement because now you have bills to pay. Whereas not being a paid presenter, we can still be excited when we get
Absolutely.
Called in to do an event and we meet new people and things like that. But like you said, accessible. We answer the phone if somebody calls us.
Right.
We answer the emails when somebody emails us. Hell, we have, people knocking on the door. I go out to dinner with somebody last Saturday night, and
and speaking of which, I do have to get to work, but I do have one more thing I want to talk about real quick, is the concept of a star fucker.
Yes.
And there's actually two aspects of this. First off, we had mentioned not too long ago that it would be, how nice it would be to have an additional slave around from the chauffeur perspective, right?
Yeah, or any perspective.
Any perspective, right? A male boy toy for you could lay on top of you while I cane them would be quite hot. It's not changed.
Okay, now I'm bouncing.
Yes.
Sorry, we're just changing the subject.
Direction of it. And somebody said, "Whoa, how can you guys not find somebody? You're so famous and shit." So it's got nothing to do with it. And I think in a way we've talked before about that kind of hurts people. As much as we feel we're approachable,
right?
People are less. They're like, "Oh, you wouldn't want me, so I'm not even going to bother to talk to you." Now we don't have that problem so much as some other presenters we know. What I really wanted to talk about was the concept of a star fucker. And we always laugh about our other presenters that we know that complain, "Oh, well, I met so-and-so, but they're just a star fucker. They just want to get in my pants because I'm famous."
Right.
What the fuck is wrong with that?
Where are they?
Yes. But the funny thing about it is, we always joke about, we have welcome star fuckers with open arms and open legs, right? The funny thing about that is, though, I was thinking about that. It's not that long ago we had some people come through from one place to another. I don't want to out them in case they still listen. I hope they do. And the female in the party, just kind of out of nowhere, I didn't know this person at all, friend of a friend thing, said, we were just messing around, and I said something. She said something about, I'd be happy to give you a blowjob, even though I've got a cold. And I said, well, you wouldn't be able to breathe through your nose, with a big cock in your mouth or something like that. Just sticking around.
Flirty thing, yeah.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, no, I could work it out. We could go in that bathroom right there, right now, and I could give you a blowjob. And I was like, well, how would your master feel about that? And he's sitting there, he goes, I don't care.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. So, sure is nice weather out. But I got all shy and shit. I feel like looking back at that experience, this is the classic star fucker.
Right.
So somebody who, now it may just be somebody who likes blowjobs. Maybe somebody who met me and 7 seconds later said, what a hottie. I'd love to have his cock in my mouth. Sure, I'll buy that too. But it's funny, as much as we talk about it,
we don't act on it sometimes, And if we look back, there are a couple of chances, couple of moments, couple of whatever, where we probably did have the chance to do something like that, and we don't follow through either. So sometimes it's offered, and we don't even realize it's being offered until later, and it'll click, and it'll go, whoa, was that an offer? And I just wasn't paying attention. And usually I find out, yes, it was, and now it's too late.
So I think for our New Year's resolution made in August, if we come across star fuckers, to take them up on it I think that's a good New Year's resolution.
Yeah. But I also, starfucker seems like such a negative word too.
It does. But
I want a different word.
Yeah, I would too, because it's groupies are nice. I like that too. And it's really interesting though, because you have to be careful about that, because I can think of one particular couple that you play with on occasion. I think you actually have a date with them coming up.
Yeah, I think so.
The first that they expressed interest in playing with you, right, and they got to use the.
They're the only ones that have slapped that out so far.
But I heard on the podcast that all I have to do is ask.
Yes.
If I mention the podcast, all I have to do is ask, and you'll play with me.
I had someone asking me about that card last night to see what the directions are to how they can use it.
Oh.
To slap out the card to play with me. So they're listening, so they know who they are.
But from last night, huh?
From last night.
Male or female?
Male.
Okay, we'll come back to that later.
Now you're thinking. So the couple played the card.
Right, but that wasn't so much star fucking as somebody who they just found you interesting, right? And it had developed a neat little relationship. I bet if they lived closer or we had more time, it would develop into even more of a relationship than it is already.
I think so too.
I have no clue where I was going with that. If you're, but I don't think that. I can understand why some presenters would be annoyed by the idea of a star fucker, I guess, because somebody's just trying to notch something in their belt.
Yeah.
And you and I don't particularly fuck a whole lot just for the sake of fucking.
No, not at all. Which is why we miss our opportunities. We don't know our opportunities.
Yeah, right. But I think there's a balance to being accessible to people. We're kind of was negotiated. Somebody reached out to us recently not because we're famous, but because we're safe.
Right.
And that's an aphrodisiac.
Absolutely.
I've never done this, or I'd love to try this, and I've heard you guys are safe. Mm-hmm. That'll turn me on.
That will turn me on. So
I mentioned earlier in the podcast that my boss can go from being, because I have a 9 to 5 like everybody else.
And you're still not dressed yet. You know what? Usually I'm the one sitting here naked. This time you're the one sitting there naked.
I will say though, in case my boss listens, which he doesn't, because I'd be fired already. Last Monday, I worked from home. I was naked.
You were naked, I know. So, and you were home taking care of me.
Yes.
So, because I couldn't bend over.
Because of your bad back.
Because of my bad back.
Yep.
That was awful.
Welcome to being human.
Yeah. Now I'm all scared of twisting my back again.
Yes. So
Can we do it during sex this time?
Yes. Don't bend me over and fuck me. Can we fuck standing up so I don't have to bend my back? I have to try that kinky missionary position.
Ew. Don't like it.
Erotic Awakening is sponsored in part by Adventures in Sexuality, Central Ohio's kinky fun group. Find out more at adventuresinsexuality.org.
So, and this offer, somebody actually took us up on this offer this time around. So, want to have your product, event, charity, or service as the first thing listeners hear about on our podcast? Make a $10 donation to the podcast for a 10-second front bump on our show that reaches listeners from around the world. What a bargain!
I wonder if podcast listeners say,
"What a bargain!"
with us then. That would be fun.
Contact us at Dan and Dawn at eroticawakening.com.
Did you know you can buy the new highly acclaimed and very well-selling Living MS and the not-so-well-selling Sex Stories and Power Exchange by Dan and Dawn directly from them? They can be found on their website, eroticawakening.com/dananddawn/books. Any $1.20 we make from anything sold on the site goes directly back into the continuing education mission of Erotic Awakening.
Bye, Dan.
Bye, Dawn.